when I was 3 years old, I got knocked over by a wave on the Jersey shore. And the ocean got my attention. And it's held my attention all these years, but it's not just the joy of the water, the exhilaration of the freedom that you feel when you're gliding through the ocean, but it's life in the ocean. That's what I found absolutely irresistible as a child, and I still do.
Well, I can remember growing up in New England, in Massachusetts, and from a very young age, my parents also would take me to the beach, the beaches of Cape Cod or Rhode Island or New Hampshire. And my earliest remembrances, my earliest memories are of coming home at the end of the day, sort of all sunburned and salty. And
happy.
And happy, yeah, that's right. It was sort of this real sense of peace that I remember having on the days that we went to the seashore, that we went to the ocean. And as I got a little bit older, the ocean represented sort of this great mystery for me. You know, the ocean was dark there, and the waves were always rolling in, and there was seaweed and little critters on the beach. But I can remember having this great sense of, or a desire to explore. You know, it was this place that represented a frontier for me, I guess. I didn't think of it in those terms maybe as a child, but...
You know, it's still that way.
It is that way.
You know, we've come a long way since you began diving, since the greatest discovery, the greatest era of exploration literally is just beginning here on Earth.
Good
in
point.
the ocean.
That's right. Yeah, what is it, 95% of the ocean remains unexplored, or at least
That's
the
right.
deep ocean?
We scratched the surface.
Scratched the surface.
We've made little dents into what's down there, but
Right.
most of it we still don't know.
Yeah.
Now we know what we could not know when I was a child or any time in the past. Now we know that the ocean drives climate, drives weather, holds 97% of Earth's water, regulates temperature, governs planetary chemistry. The ocean gives life. It's
everything.
The cornerstone of everything.
Right.
And our perspective going back before, right about now, has been to think the ocean is either so big, so vast that nothing can possibly harm the ocean. It's too big to fail. Or that, you know, whatever we do to it, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And now we know.
And you know, exactly, and to build on that, first of all, Sylvia's had these great quotes, you know, like the ocean is not too big to fail, or that she grew up on a different planet, you know, and those are, I think those are really key statements, because it makes you think in a way that we don't normally think, you know, and when she says she grew up on another planet, well, you can define that, but it's just the fact that in her lifetime, population has, you know, grown by magnitudes, quadrupled. And, you know, when you think about what that does to an ecosystem...
Earth doesn't get any bigger.
No, and we have no chance of resupply. You know, we're on spaceship Earth, as Buckminster Fuller, I think, said, you know, and this is it. So...
Make peace.
With nature. Yeah, and so I think, you know, having Sylvia as this great ambassador who can frame these issues because she's very curious, because she's a great scientist, because... Yes, and she's had that witness for all these years and can see it in the context of her lifetime, I think is key. You know,
your lifetime too.
Well,
10-year-olds, anybody can see the change.
Yeah, and that's what this film, Sea of Hope, is about. It's children who have seen changes in their own lifetime. You know, teenagers and kids in their 20s.
And also to see that it's not too late to turn things around.
Well, that's the
90% of the big fish are gone, but we still have 10%.
10%, right.
We've got still some
half the corals left.
Yeah.
And I perfectly understand that. But as a teenager, I had read the book in 1974, and then when the movie came out on June 20th, 1975, I was in the front row because I was fascinated by sharks. But it was really Matt Hooper, the character who was a marine biologist in the film, that inspired me. You know, I had been watching the Cousteau documentaries and looking at Sylvia's pictures and of her with dolphins and all kinds of great animals and sharks in National Geographic. But yeah, watching Jaws, you know, yes, it was a scary film and all of that, but what spoke to me was these people out in the ocean with sharks and doing science, and I just thought that was the coolest thing.
So, you know what? My kids saw that film, and instead of being frightened, they laughed at it. They said, "That's ridiculous."
That's not true? Yeah, right. We know better. Yeah, well, that's the difference having Sylvia Earle as their mom.
But now we know. Sharks are not out to get us.
No.
I mean, more people die from bee stings and falling off ladders.
Taking selfies.
Yeah, taking selfies.
More people die from taking selfies.
Than shark bites, for heaven's sakes. But logic has nothing to do with it. It's emotion.
Right.
And we need to emotionally, in a positive way, connect people and sharks, because
we do.
Sharks are so beautiful and they're so important to the health of the ocean.
The problem, and to build on that, you know, I did 3 stories for the magazine last year about sharks, and I have a 4th one coming up this year for National Geographic. And a big part of what I wanted to do was to sort of give sharks a bit of a makeover. You know, I think in spite of all the things we've heard about sharks, there still remains this sort of one-dimensional view, this shadowy view that they are out there to eat you. That's right. And when you put a toe in the ocean, they're going to bite you. And the reality is, you know, I have no illusions that human beings may never feel the same way about a fish as they do about a furry mammal in the forest. And they should.
Check your human now.
But not every human. Right, that's true. But I do think that if we can celebrate their magnificence through good science and good imagery, photographs,
good communication,
good communication, right? To show that sharks haven't changed for hundreds of millions of years because they haven't needed to. They are perfect for the habitat that they live in. You know, so whether it's
critical to the ocean,
and that's the other point of the equation. So, you know, even if you don't really care about sharks, at a very minimum, you should care that there are sharks, because predators keep an ecosystem healthy. And when every other breath that human beings breathe comes from the sea, we need everything to be working well in the ocean.
And sharks are important to the mechanism that maintains the integrity of the ocean systems that give the benefits back to us.
That's right.
And Peter Benchley, who wrote Jaws, when he realized what the impact was, he was devastated.
Oh, sure. Yeah, no, he spent the rest of his life working for conservation, and Wendy today still
carries on trying to
absolutely
turn people around in terms of thinking positively about sharks and certainly about caring for the ocean. Well, sharks and other top predators. Sharks are not alone in this. It's just that sharks have been around for longer. Their history goes back like 300 million years. And all fish have an ancient history as compared to birds or mammals, other vertebrates. Fish, you know, there are 33,000 kinds of fish that we know about, and all of them are important in one way or another to the integrity of the ocean. Some have referred to them as the nuts, the bolts, the cogs, the wheels, the little things, the important pieces that make the machinery of the planet function. And you know, there's redundancy there, there's resilience there, but you can't take any part out and not have an impact. If you think about your computer, what is not essential in your computer? You take one little piece out and all of a sudden things start to go haywire.
And I think this is the essential message. I think that what Sylvia just articulated is the message that I think is most important in all of this equation. It's what I've learned after 40 years of exploring the sea and 20 years of making pictures for National Geographic, is that, as she said, the planet is like the gears of a Swiss watch, and everything is connected to everything else. And I think John Muir said many years ago that if you tug on a thread in nature, you find it connected to everything else. And that's a great message. So, as Sylvia said, if you begin to remove the predators, or you begin to remove the herbivores, or you begin to remove any one of those cogs in the wheel or in the gears, it all begins to malfunction. And that's what we're seeing with ecosystem failures around the planet and species extinctions and everything. It's a domino effect. One of the mistakes, I believe, that humans have long made is that we see ourselves apart from nature, or above it, or in charge of it. And the reality is none of those things are true. We are a very integral part of it. And as we begin to see ourselves as part of that equation, it's like an epiphany. You all of a sudden realize, well, you better take care of this, because
it takes care of us.
Exactly.
So just quickly, sharks poop. Sharks
yes, they
poop.
do.
And that's important because so do all the other creatures in the ocean. And it's part of the chemistry of the ocean. It puts nutrients back into the system that causes phytoplankton to prosper. It generates oxygen and keeps us alive, captures these little organisms, capture carbon, keeps us alive. It's thinking about the big picture. Sharks and we and phytoplankton, coral reefs, it's all part of what makes Earth our home.
Right.
Makes it work.
It's a well-oiled machine.